the new government came in in the midst of soaring petroleum prices, soaring food prices, yeah, of course there was going to be disappointment in Democratic
But the government set in the March and April of 2009 when the new government took over. Were you disappointed at the composition of the government?
No.
You were not?
No, no. Why would we be disappointed? It was up to Pakistani people and Pakistani politicians to put their government together.
So we keep on reading, we keep on hearing from New York Times and other U.S. publications how the U.S. diplomats are so disappointed in the performance of this government now.
Any government would have had challenges. Any government would have had challenges. Look what's happened in this country. There's 16 months of fighting against a resilient insurgency. There was a major IDP crisis in Swat with 2.5 million people removed with virtually no loss of life. There have been floods. There's been world economic recession. Any government is going to face challenges under those circumstances, much less one that had been out of power for 12 years and was relatively inexperienced.
But I will remind you that, look, there has been a very popular book, Obama's War by Bob Woodward. And he writes at one place when he actually travels with Jim Jones. He's traveling from Afghanistan. He arrives in June of 2009 in Islamabad. And he quotes you, the U.S. Ambassador Ann Peterson, quote, "I worry that all of that is just going to blow up. Zardari does not know anything about governing. He will never get out from being Mr. Benazir Bhutto, but he's basically on our side."
Let me say first of all that Mr. Woodward's book has a lot of what I would call exaggerations. But again, let's not talk about Mr. Woodward's book, because a lot of it has gotten a lot of publicity, and I've told members of the government that a lot of it is, shall we say the least, not in accordance with my recollection. But again, let me stress the point that any government would have faced enormous challenges under this sort of situation, particularly given the world economy as it was.
But the book is selling like hotcakes. When you actually,
I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to read the book on the plane home.
Zardari does not know anything about governing and cannot be over with Mr. Benazir Bhutto.
I'm going to read the book. I haven't read the book.
But basically let me
he's
on our side.
And again, let me stress that the factor in government here, it's hard. It's a blood sport here. And the press, politicians bitterly attack each other in a way that, frankly, I haven't seen in other countries. It's a very difficult environment to govern in Pakistan.
In the same book, he quotes you another thing. He says, you were actually, in November of 2009, you were in a video conference with President Obama, and you said, quote, we need to remove uncertainty about American intentions in order to deal with the negative press inside Pakistan. What do you think is the uncertainty about the American intentions?
I don't know, but I can assure you that Mr. Woodward was not in these video conferences with President Bush. We had 15 hours of video conference with President Obama to discuss our policy toward Pakistan. And I think there is uncertainty about American intentions, particularly in Afghanistan. And we have done everything possible that we can to reassure the Pakistani people that there won't be a precipitous withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan in 2011. I don't know if that's the reference, but yes, of course there's uncertainty about our intentions. And there's a lot of doubt about our staying power in Pakistan and our long-term commitment, so sure there's uncertainty.
So, but it also mentions the negative press. Do you think the Pakistani press has been very negative towards the U.S.?
Extraordinarily negative, for reasons I can't fully understand. And it's full often of what I would call just prevarications, lies, stories that are entirely fabricated about U.S. intentions and about U.S. activities. I think I used the example with you before. I woke up one morning and Stan McChrystal was going to come here, and he didn't arrive because of bad weather. And on a major newspaper, U.S. demands Pakistan do more. And it quoted General McChrystal in a meeting with President Zardari that never took place, long quotes entirely fabricated about what General McChrystal had said.
Even before he was here?
He was never here. He didn't come. He didn't come. So someone had written the article before the meeting had ever, and not bothered to actually to find out if the meeting had taken place. So I think there's a lot of, shall we say, yeah, we get a negative press. Now a lot of this reflects local apprehensions about the United States, and a lot of that is history. We have a long way to go. We're trying to step up our public outreach and scholarships and all those sorts of activities so people will understand us better and have more opportunity to go to the United States.
But do you think this negative press, this negative publicity, is a failure of the U.S. public diplomacy, or is in fact a reflection of the divergence of interest between the United States?
It's both. And we used to ignore these articles that were blackwater and made up and such. And we started to push back against those and call the journalists and call the editors and put out statements. So I think that's helped. And some of it, of course, is a divergence of interest. I mean, we have a divergence of interest with Canada, much less with a complex country like Pakistan. And that's why we have the strategic dialogue. That's why we have high-level meetings. That's why we work hard to overcome these differences and increase the understanding. And I think there's been a lot of progress in that respect during the Obama administration.
But
we're having a meeting next week of the strategic dialogue.
But the people in Pakistan often wonder, there's a very, very popular question in the people's mind, that Pakistan opted for the United States. It has been allies since the Korean War, through the Vietnam conflict, then the first Afghanistan war, the Soviet occupation, where India was in fact a solid Soviet ally during the Afghanistan occupation of Soviet Union 1979 onwards. But they see increasingly an alliance, a real alliance between the United States and India, whereas Pakistan is perceived as only in the context of terrorism.
That's not true, Moeed. I mean, there's a perception here that I'm frankly glad to have a chance to correct, that our relations between Pakistan and India are a zero-sum game. It's a good thing the United States has good relations with India. India is a huge commercial market for the United States and a thriving democracy. And it has huge opportunities for Pakistan, too. But just because we have good relations with India doesn't mean we can't have excellent relations with Pakistan as well. And the two should coincide.
But still, there appears to be a difference in the attitude towards India or Pakistan. Look at the recent NATO incursions. Why it took almost 7-8 days before the apologies could be offered?
Because we were doing an investigation, a joint investigation, I might add, with members of the Pakistani military. So we want to ascertain the facts before we go out and make public statements. But it was a horrible tragedy. 2 members of the Frontier Corps, Frontier Scouts, are dead, and one's in a coma, and we recognize that and apologize. It was a horrible tragedy. It was a mistake. But we do have to ascertain the facts before we make public statements.
Ambassador, I'll give you an example. When you appeared in my program in terms of public diplomacy, when you appeared in my program in the August of 2009, and you said, Dr. Pirzada, I categorically deny there's no black water working in Pakistan, it actually went very well. People wanted to believe that U.S. ambassador cannot come on record and say that there's no black water. But you have been giving a lot of explanation on Afia Siddiqui, and it doesn't really go well. No one believes. They think you're hiding something.
Dr. Pirzada, let me categorically deny that Dr. Afia Siddiqui was incarcerated at Bagram Air Base.
Never. She was never at Bagram Air Base.
She was never at Bagram Air Base except when the event for which she was prosecuted took place. And let me encourage the Pakistani journalists, enterprising journalists, to find out where she was for 3 years, because I don't think she's ever spoken about that.
The Pakistani journalists are convinced she was at the Bagram Air Base.
That's why we have a free press in Pakistan, so they can go out and find out where she was.
But you must have heard the Pakistani agencies admitted privately that they picked up her from Karachi in many years ago.
I don't know that. But if that's the situation, that should be revealed to the press and to the public, because there's much public concern about this. But I can assure you that she was not at Bagram Air Base. She was not incarcerated at Bagram Air Base. Her children were not there. And I think this is something that should be investigated by enterprising journalists here in Pakistan.
Let me take a quick break here.
Okay.
We take a quick break. I'm joined here by United States outgoing Ambassador, Ms. Peterson. We'll continue the discussion after the break.